First, someone chopped at the girl's forehead with some type of cleaver or hacking implement. The scientists said then the body was turned over and there were four strikes to the back of the head that split the skull in half. Finally, Douglas Owsley said Smithsonian's magazine, a knife was used to pry open the head and remove the brain. Why to eat it? He said, recent architectural finds have shed light on one of the mysteries of Jamestown, the first permanent English settlement in the Americas. Historians have long believed that some of its settlers engaged in cannibalism. Journals and letters from the winter of 1609 to 1610 describe how severe the food shortage was and how desperate some people became. But there was no proof until recently, when archaeologists excavating the remains of Jamestown's old fort found a human skull and leg bone in a trash pit. Scientists believe that they belong to a girl of about 14 whom they've named Jane. And what caused the hack marks on Jane's bones, Owsley, an anthropologist at the Smithsonian Institution who examined the remains, was pretty sure it's clear that this body was dismembered for consumption, he said. In April 1607, about 105 English settlers sent by the Virginia Company of London sailed into the Chesapeake Bay up a river they called the James. They built a small fort they also named for England's King James, Jamestown, was to be their foothold in the big section of the New World that England claimed as Virginia. The settlers, however, had no idea how to live in the wilderness. First, they built their fort near a marsh, which was a source of infectious disease. Worse, there were very few colonists who could do the building, planting, and hunting needed to keep the settlement going. And most of Jamestown's leaders, who described themselves as gentlemen, thought they were above such physical labor. This attitude drove the colony's most capable leader crazy. Captain John Smith was a veteran soldier and adventurer, a man of action, gentleman who mostly made the decisions about Jamestown, expecting to get the fruits of other men's labors. He later wrote scornfully they would rather their harvest before they planted their corn. Instead of concentrating on planting, the colonists sought to buy food from local Indians, especially the area's most powerful chief, Powhatan. Is that how you say it? Powhatan. Powhatan was uncertain about the intentions of the colonists, says historian David A. Price. How long did these white people plan to stay? But he did agree to provide food to them at first. He hoped that he could trade with them for their weapons and metal tools, and that he could make an alliance with them against other tribes. Price tells J.S. The colony relied on John Smith to deal with the proud and crafty Powhatan. The captain and the chief respected and feared each other. Smith made the colonists appear stronger militarily than they actually were, Price says. Smith, in turn, depended on the friendship and support of Powhatan's daughter, Pocahontas, about 11 at the time, the heroine of one of the most famous legends in American history. The Indian princess repeatedly brought gifts of food to the hard-put settlers. Her aid helped get Jamestown through 2 hard winters. New arrivals from England helped the colony to grow. But by September 1609, Smith was fed up with both Powhatan and the gentleman. After he was severely burned and his gunpowder bag accidentally caught fire, he went back to England. Now another winter approached. With Smith gone, Pocahontas turned her back on the settlement. Jamestown was truly up a creek without a paddle. The colony's president, George Percy, knew they were in trouble. 14 nets had been laid to catch fish, but the colonists had carelessly allowed them to rot in the water. Price says Percy had not set food aside for the winter. Instead, he had counted on the Virginia Company to send a supply. But week after week passed with no sign of aid from England. Most important, says Price, the departure of John Smith led Chief Powhatan to conclude that he had nothing to fear from cutting off the colonists' food supply. By now, Powhatan wanted the settlers gone. His warriors laid siege to Jamestown, killing anyone who stepped outside the fort. Survivors later called that winter the starving time. Now all of us at Jamestown began to feel that sharp prick of hunger, Percy wrote. People began dying in alarming numbers. Frightened settlers ate their horses, then dogs and cats and rats, then their sleeve leather. And then some resorted to things which seem incredible, as to dig up dead corpses out of the grave and to eat them. Percy wrote, and some have licked up the blood which hath fallen from their weak fellows. It got worse, according to Percy. One man even killed his wife in her sleep and salted her for food. Jamestown was nearly wiped out, but in May 1610, 2 ships from England finally arrived, months late. Then the new arrivals discovered 60 living skeletons in the fort. They were all that was left of the 500 people who had started the winter there. Jamestown went on to survive and even thrive. The settler John Rolfe, later Pocahontas' husband, introduced tobacco as a cash crop which brought prosperity to the colony. In 1619, Jamestown became the site of the Virginia Assembly, the first representative lawmaking body in the Western Hemisphere. That same year, the first black slaves in North America were brought to Jamestown from Africa. Today, as the old fort continues to be excavated, historians expect to learn more about Jamestown, and that additional victims of the starving time will be found. Proving that they were eaten may not be easy, though the other bodies might not have had the skeletal injuries that enabled the archaeologists to show that Jane was cannibalized, Price says. Is learning about cannibalism 400 years ago relevant to us? William Kelso, the chief archaeologist at Jamestown, believes so. As he told the Washington Post, people will be able to empathize with the time in history and think to themselves, as I do, what would I do to stay alive?